David, thank you for your time this morning. I'm looking forward to talking about this book because I have to say, I thought it was absolutely jam-packed. And I came away feeling that actually this could be 7 books. This could be, there's enough material for a book on each pillar, I thought. But there are a couple of things that I specifically pulled out that I thought were really interesting and unexpected as well. The first of which was you used the CMM model, the capability maturity model.
Yeah.
I have a software development background, so I was really familiar with that. And it struck me that that was a good example of something that was developed for a specific purpose being used and adapted elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know how you came across the CMM model and what made you think it was a good model for assessing the maturity of a sales organization.
2010, I think it was, or thereabouts anyway. I worked with a client in 23 countries. They had sales teams, I think it was about 4 in total, including the internal team, big 4,000 sales. And we did a best practice program. And it meant traveling the world. It meant understanding how these people worked, what they were doing. Huge amount of learning for me in how organizations work, how sales organizations work in an international environment. A common thing is the left hand doesn't know the right thing to do. I remember amazing things going on in Chile and Argentina in the way that they approached the acquisition or finding new customers. And none of the rest of the world knew what they were doing. It just wasn't shared. And then say in Germany, they had amazing account management expertise, same day, they wasn't shared anywhere. And that I've seen time and time again. And so that was a foundation of the 7 pillars. So the learning from that whole process. Now, at that time, the investors asked me if I could do a due diligence program for them that they could use when they were in due diligence in whatever acquisition. I'll tell you, as I tried, I had a spreadsheet coming out of my ears. At the time, I couldn't figure it out because it seemed so complicated. Some years later, I didn't want to give up, and this bugged me that I couldn't put this together in a structured way. There's lots of diagnostics around, there's some phrase, answer 20 questions and I'll tell you when you're £100 million business. And they're just not viable for me. So by chatting away to a friend of mine, this problem has been around in my brain for some time. And he said, had I ever heard of the CMM? And I hadn't. Honestly, it was like a light bulb going off. But all of a sudden, I could understand how to do it. Because then, if you understand CMM, it's a really structured, very simple, a really structured process that says you're either at an ad hoc level, 5 steps later, you're fully optimized, and the different steps between it. So now I could say, whether it's to do with strategy and planning or management or processes or people knowledge and skill or organizing structure, I could break that down into what are the key areas underneath each of those 7 areas and then describe them. And so what I did with CMM, I created about 300 scenarios based on the CMM. So for each key area of the business, like let's assume it's strategy and planning, there may be 8 or 9 different subsets. But then for each one, I created 5 scenarios. So then when I was looking at a business, saying, okay, and working with the company, say, well, where, not just what do you think on a scale of 1 to 10, because 10 people give me 10 different answers. But out of these 5 scenarios, which one fits your business best? And that then gave birth to what today is a capability, maturity and due diligence model that I now operate.
It is amazing, actually, and it's totally logical. And I've used it in project management as well, actually, the capability of project management and delivery.
I think it's really exciting. I've been involved in 20 or more M&As over the last 25 years. Of course, when you do due diligence, you've got an army of people that come in and lift up all the covers and see what's underneath and do lots of financial analysis and so on. But as I describe it, is looking in the rearview mirror. Because what's actually happening, you're looking at what's happened to the business, what's happened to the business, where are they today, what's their financial strength and so on, what's their market position. What you're not doing is looking at what's the capability of that organization to grow in the way you want them to grow and using the CMM model. So if they're at a level 2 on the CMM model in knowledge and skill, then you clearly define that and say, okay, so this part of the organization could improve by increasing its knowledge and skill in this area, or this particular team, or this particular individual. And so it's not a wild, well, they've got potential to grow because it's meaningless. You're saying, actually, they're at this level now, let's move them incrementally to the next level. And of course, you make incremental changes, incremental steps. You do that 25 times and you've got 25% growth of the business. And you've seen the amazing opposite. And the structure of it is the same, it's the same thing. But the logic is that you understand where you're standing. If you don't know where you stand in the first place, how it is key, determine where you're going to go. So that's key. And then understand what steps do I need to take in order to bring about change in those 7 key areas that drive performance. You could use exactly the same model. You could use it in manufacturing. You could do it in production. You could use it in supply chain. You could do it in HR. You could do it in any part of the business. Absolutely the same logic. And the other thing, of course, by doing that, you see the overlay from country to country. And it's quite remarkable because it gives you the opportunity to see where the strengths and weaknesses across different countries or different teams in different, not necessarily international, but certainly international ones. This country is really good at prospecting or finding new customers, a good structure for it. And the other countries don't have that. So how can we take the learning from that part of the world and share it with the other part of the world and raise the bar?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to, when you go into somewhere new, that you've got a kind of map.
But you're right. This gives you a very clear, structured approach. And the other thing it does, because I now do it as an app, or partially as an app online, I can get a due diligence audit of that kind, in addition to whatever the M&A guys are doing anyway, really quickly. So within a week or two, we can get a view of the capability of the organization. And then you make your decisions faster. Because that's really what I mean. The audit itself is, it's not meaningless, but you know what I mean? That the benefit of doing a due diligence audit, of course, is what's it telling me that I need to do post acquisition? And that's really what the CMM approach does.
I've been involved in quite a few acquisitions and divestitures actually lately, right. And the CMM would have been really useful. Looking back now and having read your book, thinking, right, there are loads of applications for this, and I'm sure I'm going to use it again fairly soon, actually. But moving on, I did have a little bit of a giggle actually at one of your chapters where you were talking about values, and one particular value that you were having a little giggle at in the book as well, which was boundarylessness.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I had the giggle because it was one of the values that for a company that I worked for in the past, and the staff spent more time making the point that it wasn't really a word than thinking about what it meant, which was what it was really about was collaboration and breaking down barriers between departments and organizations. And one of the things that I've learned in my experience is that in any given process, when you're in a department, other departments in the organization are your customers or your suppliers, and that you are all part of a supply chain inside the organization. Yeah. And whatever inputs and outputs you receive from others or provide to others, it helps if you understand what they need from you before you deliver something, and also share with people you're expecting input from what it is you need. And it takes a lot of effort to do that and to make sure that everybody is collaborating. Most departments I've worked in have their own processes about how they do things, but very few develop a process across departments that goes through the whole organization. And I think that's what you were kind of getting at.
You hit on a major passionate line. If I look back at all those hockey sticks and the companies where they've achieved this astronomic turnaround in growth, of course you put processes in place, of course you have structure and policies and so on. But the key thing for me is the alignment of people. When I do these same department and CMM model, to achieve performance growth, the business determines whatever the goals are. What's your legacy going to be in 12 months' time or 24 months' time as a team of people? And the charge you've got, we use the expression red arrow teams and green arrow teams. So the red arrow teams are, like most businesses, key to work together. They come together, senior executive, and then CEO, and then you've got a board, or maybe the next layer down in an organization, and cascading throughout the organization. You start around plan, we'll not why I think say, yeah, we're all up for that plan. And then everyone goes away and they go to their day job. And their day job is full of emails and problems and this and that and the other. And they get distracted the day they walk out of the meeting.
Yes.
And so the challenge you've got in many organizations is the lack of, what I call it, consistency, the lack of accountability as well. But what I do when I'm working with businesses now, we create what we call a plan in a day. We plan on one page. This is not the in-depth business plan now, but this is a plan about, as a team of people, how are we going to work together? What is this legacy outcome we as a team are going to deliver? What values have we got? What makes us want to do this? What are the principles of working together? Some people are stronger than others. Some people, don't want to speak so much. And so you have to have the opportunity to be able to speak and not be fearful. So that's part of the rules of principles of working together. Having set those parameters for how we're going to work together over the next year and set what the goals are, then it's about tracking it on an ongoing basis. And what clients say to me, is like keeping them accountable. So on a monthly basis, we pull the team back together, or the individual works, the individuals as well as the team. And we're looking at what they've achieved in that month against the annual goal that they've set out. So each month you set new goals, which are incremental goals towards incremental actions, achievable goals on a month-by-month basis in order to get the growth. And so if you can do that, the outcome is evident. You look at those 46 in the last 25 years, and it's every single one I can tell you that's how it happened. The thing I'm most proud of when I worked with a company across 9 countries in Europe, good company. They were 60 million turnover, grew to 125 million in less than 2 years. So phenomenal growth. They were really good people, but they were siloed. So in each country, you had amazing country managers. You really had some superstars in each of these countries. But the key thing really was that they weren't aligned in a cohesive vision, working with a shared purpose and a shared outcome. We did that. And we spent the first 3 months doing all the planning and deciding what our plan was going to be. But after that, we got together every quarter, somewhere in Europe. The whole group of us would get together for one weekend and we review where we are. We'd also importantly get to know each other personally. So we became close friends. We still are today. And the outcome of that was there's the result. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. And so building a team, or even with an individual, the entrepreneurs that walk the journey, daily life gets in the way. The challenges you get, you have a meeting, we all agree what we're going to do, and then something happens, and you get distracted. And then someone has to help them bring it back and keep on bringing it, keep more focused. And having written a book, that's really what the book is all about.
Well, you highlight there the importance of relationships, building and developing relationships across the organisation and between those silos. And one example that you give, and I can't remember which chapter it's in, but there's you talk about the handoff between the sales and the account management piece.
Yeah.
And they're doing different jobs and they require different skill sets. And then there's kind of, it's all very well making new sales, but if you can't get that into the operational world and have the client looked after to the same kind of level as the client expects once they've met the sales team, you come to us, you explain the services you offer, we're really impressed, that looks fantastic, and then you pass us off to your B team. Yeah. Who seem to know nothing about us.
And you get what's called buyer's remorse. In fact, just recently I've come across exactly that, where really good salespeople, front-end business development people, spend 6 months or more working with a prospect to win the business, reassuring them. And then finally the contract is signed. And then the BD person disappears up the list to the next client, hand it over. Well, not necessarily to a B team, but a B process. So the people might be very good at what they do it.
There's the information
process. A very real example now that I've just been involved in, where the client was told one thing, but actually what happened was not that. And it's a really quick way to lose a client. You might not lose it on day one, but downstream, when it comes to the recommendations, you don't get the recommendations, you don't end up getting the referrals that you want, the renewals don't happen. All of those things can be impacted in those short few weeks of onboarding. I was with a sustainability software company 8 years ago, and again now, and they're both really good. They put a lot of effort into making sure that the clients there's the clear process about onboarding. The client knew before they signed the contract, this is the journey you're going to go on with it. This is what will happen, the stage A, B, C, and D. And then there's a handoff between the two. The BD guy didn't disappear overnight. They stayed, but dropped out quietly from those groups until there was a happy handover. And you end up with happy customers and a good, strong, ongoing relationship. Surprising how many companies don't see that.
So my next question is kind of related to that, which is about retention and renewal. And as you just explained, you don't, if you don't get that onboarding right, you don't get the referrals and the renewed contracts. Yeah. Because the customer has a poorer experience than you sold them.
At the retention renewal end of it, of course, the companies that wait until 3 months before the contract's due to end after 3 years and say, oh, we better do something about it. And then they realize, I'm seeing this too, they realize that customer hasn't used your software for the past 12 months. And then suddenly you're saying, well, will you renew? Well, we haven't used it, we have no benefit from it. That's about account management. That's about having high caliber account management, engagement, ongoing support, and building those relationships. When it comes to referrals, ServiceNow have a phenomenal referral program where effectively the customers are driving that whole referral process. And so you can build that relationship with the client, build it in a way that it was a partnership. And that's definitely the approach to take. And that way you end up with a mutual benefit of partnership that will survive the test of time. And they will refer you to others if they're happy with. Of course, you have to ask as well. I mean, look, I've done for clients I come across, don't ask. Now, you've seen that, there's the areas of strategy and planning and management and processes and organizational structure and knowledge and skill and enablement, sales enablement, and technology, and then distribution. But how many times have I come across companies of mid-size? My area has been mid-cap international businesses, really sort of from 5 million to 150 million. I guess that's the area I worked in. But the number of times I've come across those companies that don't do planning, don't do business planning. And planning for me isn't let's produce a PowerPoint, talk around a board and say, well, that looks great. We'll do that, and then that's it. There has to be a what I call a roadmap. Agree on the strategy, but there's got to be a roadmap, measurable roadmap that determines where you're going to go, how you're going to measure it. So it's surprising how many companies don't do that, and it don't have to be War and Peace. I've written 300-page plans in my past. I wouldn't want to do it now, but equally you could do it on a plan on a page.
You kind of bring me to my next question, actually, because another tool that you talk about, and I think this came from a non-profit organisation, was something called an egg map, which was an evergreen monthly action plan.
Evergreen moving action plan.
Moving action plan, right.
So the logic of that was, that was it was a non-profit. It was probably one of the most meaningful, I don't mean it's the wrong way because I've had many meaningful businesses I worked at, but from a human perspective, the most meaningful business I've ever worked in that what we were doing wasn't it was for profit, but not really. It was about people. It was about helping people, live the meaningful life. That was where we used to write 300-page plans. But we had significant manufacturing environments. But one of the things we had to do, because of the nature of manufacturing, nature of the business, we had to be able to forecast accurately 12 months out because of the employment structure, because of the capital equipment they were employing and so on. But there, yes, we did do the planning, and we would write the 5-year plan. And of course, the 5-year plan, year 2 on the 5-year plan year 1 next year was year 2 of the previous year, and we roll it, and we just and it was a continuous rolling process. And then we coined the phrase the egg map, which was easy to remember.
Yes, I really liked that, because that actually kind of fits quite well in with the CMM idea.
Yes, it does.
You can work both together.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Because you never ever get to fully optimize, do you? There's always more you can do, always more you can learn. I have a model that I go into a company with, and it's semi-automated, but I'm working with a young group of people where we're trying to make it more AI enabled. So once you do the analysis, so imagine doing analysis across 23 countries, and you've got 500 different people in identifying where the opportunity strengths are. If I can take the grunt work out the analysis using an AI-enabled tool to very quickly analyze the difference between country A, B, C, and D, then I can get to an answer much faster, and that's what I'm trying to do at the moment.
So another whole chapter in your book that really fascinated me, and one I'm not overly familiar with actually, was about the use of sales channels.
Oh gosh!
Yeah. And as I read that chapter and started to understand some of the challenges that you were talking about, that was really the chapter that made me think, oh crikey, there's a whole other book here.
There is.
There's actually so much to think about, because all of the things we've talked about, having a plan, having a structured approach, talking about process, understanding collaborations and relationships within an organization is kind of multiplied when you start looking at channel partners, because they have their own agenda and their own processes and their own growth plan, and somehow you've got to kind of marry the two and make it a win-win relationship for both organizations. Yeah. And that's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's probably one of the greatest areas of specialization for me, because half of my career has been involved in distribution, international distribution environments. At its simplest level, if you imagine you've got your distribution network, it's like having a sales team that you don't actually own and you can't control. Somebody else's business.
Yeah.
The other end of it is I come across companies that decide they want to expand. They want to expand out the UK or wherever it is. They want to expand internationally. So we'll find agents. So we'll find distributors, and then find it doesn't work because it's they get an agreement with a major organization that says they're going to distribute your product, and they don't. Factoring in, well, why hasn't it happened? Because they've got millions of customers worldwide. Why aren't they selling my product? And of course, as you've now read in the book, it's far more complex than that, because it's about, is there a mutual benefit in them selling your products? Just because they happen to be in some leading consultancy business, why should they sell my product? They've got their own agendas, as you say. So when you're looking for partners in the first place, you have to decide what kind of partners do you looking for? What is it? What are the criteria that you need, but also what are the criteria that they're looking for? How will your product, service, or whatever it is you want to do, how will that add value to their business? And how will you help them? It's not a passive thing. You can't say, right, I've signed this agreement with this channel partner, and off you go, and they'll do a bit of marketing, and suddenly we'll get zillions of orders through the door. It doesn't work like that. I think, Joe, one of the most successful channel distribution network I was involved in. I worked for a data management services business, right, from 11 million to 25 million and 60 million of forward order contracts in 2 years. Amazing growth. And we had 12 channel managers, and so we had to train channel managers. But they had about 1,000 resellers initially, but they were broadliners. I mean, you understand the world of software. So these guys were IBM resellers. So it was narrow margins, high volume, box shifting, we call it.
Yeah.
Where we were going now into more involved managed services solution. So we were selling managed services. And so it needed a different kind of mentality, a different approach. We out of these 1,000 or so resellers that they had, we found maybe, 20 companies that were the right size, right shape, had the right passion, the right understanding, all those things. And then we added 10 more. We trained those resellers, Ruth, like you couldn't believe. We helped them with managing their business, with their finances, with their sales, with their marketing. We put a huge amount of effort into enabling those channel partners to sell out on our behalf. So the business went from 11 to 25 and 60 million pound of forward order contracts. 2 years. That was the outcome of doing that. Another company I worked with, an international telco, mobile software, same thing. They wanted to grow in Southern Europe. We had nothing. And so built the back end so it was seamless, so that we could deliver the services they were offering. I then recruited an external sales team for 6 months. They then found the right, so we had a profile of what kind of reseller partners we needed in country. They were tasked with finding those resellers. We then have the delivery message, service delivery mechanisms to make it easy for the reseller. So what they had to do is find the customers and then provide the service, the follow-up service to the customers. That's definitely an area of passion for me. I was asked a question just a couple of days ago about how do you balance your reseller network, your distribution network, with your direct sales team. So I just said, don't compete. Whatever you do, don't compete. Because if you compete, if you mess with the channel, it has long memories and they will remember, and it will cost you dearly in the long run. So if you're going to go the channel route, make it clear what the boundaries are. And if you've got both channel and direct sales, a very clear segmentation between the two, and make sure that both sides understand where the demarcation is. And if people cross over, have the right policies, the ground rules in place to fix it and quickly. And support your channel. Let's support the channel. Work with them. Like you with your own sales team. We did that in another business, consumer electronics business. We built a distribution network in 47 countries. Same thing, same results were amazing. But it was about, obviously about the structure and so on, but it was also about getting people together. So every year or 6 months, we get all these people together from around the world in Germany, and we would have a conference together. We would talk about what we're doing. We get to know each other. And now I'm not involved anymore, but I can see online, there's still a network of people that have become friends over that. And so you build, it's just like having your own organization, but you don't own it. It's somebody else's business, and you got to be respectful of that. But there's so much we could talk about on distribution work. I mean, even down to, the cultural differences.
And mutual trust, actually.
Mutual trust, my goodness me, that's key. You've got cultural differences. It takes time to build that trust. Same thing we said earlier on about team building. You've got to find ways to share the values, share the alignment, build the trust, and then have the principles of working together. It's very exciting because you get it right. The results are truly amazing.
This is probably the hardest question, I think. I can't even imagine how you're going to answer this. If there was one message that you would want your readers to take away from this book, what would it be?
Planning, process, and people. And people is the key part of it. Yeah, that's it. If you haven't got planning, you'll lose your way. If your processes are I liken it to the foundation of a building. If you haven't got the foundations, then you could be on rocky ground. So get the process right. Get the process don't drive business, but they certainly make sure you stay on track. The thing that makes the thing that it's an obvious thing to say, isn't it? That the people aspect, their knowledge and their skill, their cohesion, their alignment, their trust, their passion, how you motivate things. I mean, my these days, my greatest delight helps somebody else grow.
Yes,
both individually and as a business, and to watch, to watch people just shine, and I think it's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So those three things. So planning, person, people. I don't want to oversimplify it, and there's lots more in the book than that. But
there really is. So, is there a question I should have asked but haven't?
I think the biggest question for me would be, and it sounds rather obvious, why doesn't it happen? Like you said about the people element, why don't businesses do that in the first place? And I don't really have the answer. I mean, I've worked in businesses in the 1990s. I worked in a conglomerate, and it was aggressive. It was about asset stripping. It was about buying businesses, driving short-term profit for the sake of delivering profit into the investors. But you didn't get sustainable businesses. And so the model doesn't work. The fear into people, and it's not sustainable. It's not it's not moral anyway, but it's not sustainable. Whereas the opposite, like the business that I alluded to, work to, if you get those things right, it's a no-brainer because you see the outcome every time, and the amazing growth that you can get. So why is it that companies don't? Maybe the answer to thinking about it, the answer is, well, they're busy doing other things. They're busy doing their own thing. Maybe they're You know, maybe their own. Someone said to me in one company I went into, you have to stay in your own tram lane, and I said, well, that's kind of right, but not. The business isn't. You know, if I do my bit, you do your bit, it'll work. It won't. You need to come together, and you find ways of, which we do through the approach that we take now on building teams. Is to.
Well, you have to make sure those tram lines are going in the same direction.
Exactly right.
A final question, David.
Yeah.
If people want to connect with you or catch up with you or talk with you about the services you offer, what is the best way for them to get in touch?
Probably LinkedIn. They find me on LinkedIn, or indeed through my website at smartbrg.com.
So just a reminder for everybody then, the book we've been talking about here is the Business Bookcase Book of the Month for June, which is The 7 Pillars, Strategies for Business Breakthrough by David Parry. So once again, David, thank you so much for your time. I loved this book, and I finished it wanting more. So I really think if you've got time, I'd happily read another 6 books.
Thank you very much for that, Ruth. I appreciate that. I appreciate this conversation very much.
So thank you very much for being Book of the Month, for agreeing to talk and spend time together. That's been fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruth. I appreciate that.